So let's jump now into what has been a huge day in the tortured history of the Middle East, and that's the peace deal announced earlier today on social media by President Trump. He announced Israel and Hamas have agreed to a deal that would release all the Israeli hostages. Trump has now said they will be free by Monday, all those held in the Gaza Strip. That's the first step toward what he calls a strong, durable and everlasting peace. Who better to pick through what has, in anyone's judgment, been an incredible day globally? The foreign editor at the Australian, Greg Sheridan, who has, I am sure, seen these sorts of plans come and go many more times than he cares to remember. Greg, this time, will it work? Will it hold?
Well, Steve, it's great to be with you. Yes, indeed. I've written about a lot of Middle East peace plans, and the more Nobel Prizes they get, the less likely they are to work. We don't know if it'll hold, but it looks like the first round will go ahead. The first round is the most important round. That is the release of Israel's remaining hostages, a cessation of fighting, to cease fighting, and the restoration of aid into the Gaza Strip. Then that would be closely followed by Hamas disarming and giving up power. But even if it's just the first phase and we get an ugly stalemate after that, that is tremendous progress. You stop the killing in Gaza, you get those hostages back to their families. I don't think Israel would be motivated to resume the military campaign once it's got its hostages. And this is Hamas surrendering its last bit of leverage. This is surrender and defeat for Hamas. So it's a huge victory for Donald Trump and a huge victory for Benjamin Netanyahu.
So you mentioned there that this is Hamas's, they've thrown all chips in on this, Greg. They've said, OK, and their bargaining power was the live and dead hostages. I mean, to be blunt about it, why has the Hamas leadership now decided, OK, it's time to actually play that card? Where do they go now?
Well, they probably go nowhere. It's very hard to deter Hamas or to convince Hamas to do anything because Hamas is a kind of a death cult. I mean, people don't like to face up to what Hamas is, but just Google the original Hamas charter. It's vilely, filthily anti-Semitic. It's apocalyptic. It's a Salafist, jihadist, extreme ideology. Now, they could have saved, so the Hamas medical authorities say that 67,000 Palestinians have been killed in the last 2 years. They could have saved all of those people if they'd released the hostages on day one or on any of the intervening days between then and now. The death and destruction in Gaza is the moral responsibility of Hamas. But why are they doing it now? Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, Hamas hardly exists, really. It's a number of fighters, not senior commanders anymore in Gaza, and I think they'd be happy to embrace death. Hamas is not scared of death. They love death. They're in love with death. But the leadership of Hamas in Doha has been prevailed upon by the Arab world, which is really sick to death of this war and wants it to stop. And Hamas knows that they need some ongoing relationship with the Arab world. They probably still hope that they can salvage some amount of influence in Gaza going forward. But much as this is a defeat for Hamas, and this represents the exhaustion and the death of Hamas, at the same time, Hamas has achieved a lot of its aims. It has massively harmed Israel's international standing, and it has produced so much death and destruction in Gaza that the international community is going to have to take it over. It's going to have to be Arabs, Americans, everybody. So Gaza goes back to the front page of the news for a long, long time to come. And that's more or less what they wanted. And a real peace, a two-state peace, is further away than ever because they've increased the hatred of Israelis for Palestinians and Palestinians for hatred. So although this is a real defeat for Hamas and represents a surrender, at the same time, the tragedy is they have achieved a great deal of what they wanted to achieve when they set out on their, obscenity on October 7, 2 years ago.
Greg, you've been a very balanced critic of Donald Trump, praising him when he does good and criticising him when you think that he's done the wrong thing. We saw there today those historic pictures of Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, handing the note to Trump, whispering in his ear, and then Trump announcing on Truth Social that he thinks the deal's going to get over the line. What does this, in your view, do to the Trump reputation globally?
Well, it's a very big win for Donald Trump. Let there be no doubt. Trump produced this. It was Trump's will, Trump's negotiating. Very important to get Jared Kushner back involved in the process. He was probably the most competent person in the first Trump administration. So Trump deserves all the credit in the world for this. Now, it's not a permanent peace. We have to see yet. You know, remember Trump declared that the nuclear danger was over from North Korea in his first term. That turned out to be baloney. Remember, he declared that Vladimir Putin was going to have a summit with Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine and there'd be a ceasefire within 3 weeks and so on. That turned out to be baloney. Now, as I say, even if he just gets phase one here, that is a huge achievement. But we are, of course, a million miles away from a settled peace. And previous presidents have got to where we are now. You know, Bill Clinton and the Oslo Accords and the deal that Clinton worked out with the Israelis, which Yasser Arafat walked away from. We've been on the threshold of peace a number of times. American presidents aren't idiots. They've all tried to solve this problem. And it's really Palestinian rejectionism influenced by outside actors like Iran, which has made a deal impossible. It still looks to me like a long-term peace is extremely difficult. But Trump deserves every bit of praise he gets today. He hasn't solved the Middle East. This is not the greatest day in human civilization. He hasn't ended 3,000 years of conflict, but he has stopped the killing in Gaza, and he might get the hostages back for Israel. That's enough to be going on with.
The Israeli cabinet's meeting, I think, as we speak, and obviously they need to endorse what's happened here. What does this do for Benjamin Netanyahu going forward? He's had his critics internally. He's had critics within his own party of what he's done. The far right of his cabinet is not happy about this peace deal. They wanted, you know, Gaza to basically be levelled. Where do we see Netanyahu falling after this?
Well, this is a big victory for Netanyahu. If he gets all the hostages back, it doesn't really matter what the extreme right says about him. I myself am critical of Netanyahu. I've interviewed him many times, or you know, several times, more than any other Australian, I'm sure. And he has many massive achievements to his credit for Israel. But I think the military tactics over the last 6 months have been excessive. There have been too many people killed for too little military benefit. And I think that does reflect the situation in his coalition. But with this deal, I think the centrist parties in the Knesset would back him if the far right runs away from him. But also, even the far right in Israel would have to recognise you can't defy Donald Trump and you can't defy world opinion. And it's just morally wrong to keep killing if it's not absolutely necessary in the interests of the state. So if Netanyahu, I think he will be able to get agreement to this deal. And if he's able to implement this deal, then that will aid his reputation a lot. Trump said Israel has lost a lot of support all over the world and I'm going to get it all back for them. Well, nothing would win support back for Israel more than implementing peace. You know, I think 99% of the moral fault here lies with Hamas, but I think Israel's tactics over the last 6 months have been excessive, and this gives them a road out of that. It gives Netanyahu a road out of that in which he can legitimately claim victory and then settle things down. I mean, everybody in the whole world just wants the killing to stop and things to settle down.
Great catch up, Greg. Thank you. I look forward to reading your analysis in The Australian tomorrow morning. Greg Sheridan there.